Hey, it's January 7th, 2025. And on a day like today, I'm reminded of that music lyric from The Music Man. Hey, we got trouble right here in River City. Well, River City is Canada, and as the lyric goes, we've got trouble. And that starts with T and it rhymes with P, and that stands for prorogue. So that's what's going on now, you know? The Prime Minister made a big announcement yesterday, and he went to the Governor General and he said, we're going to prorogue Parliament. And we're going to do that till March 26th of this year. Well, that's 3 months away. Why did he do that, and what does it mean? Okay, first off, to prorogue means to stop or discontinue the session of Parliament. That means that all the activity and things that were going on, all the bills that were up for discussion or the different legislative agendas, they're off now. And his idea is that then he's going to resign. He's announced his intention to resign, and this will give his Liberal Party 3 months to pick a new leader so that then they can fight an election that is almost certain to be called by all the opposition parties. Okay, that all sounds great, but everything's suspended for 3 whole months, and that has some consequence. So let's call time out for a moment, and let's go back and walk through what's been going on the Canadian federal political scene. So I know not everybody out there eats this stuff for breakfast like I like to. You know, some of us have different skill sets and we've got different focus in life, no problem. So if you haven't been paying attention with just an eagle eye over the last 3 months, I just want to walk us back to the fall of 2024. It wasn't that long ago, but here's what was happening. Well, there were a lot of problems. We knew that Canada was in the economic doldrums. We knew that the federal government was running a deficit way too big. And we knew that a lot of folks in Parliament were saying we don't have confidence in Justin Trudeau and the Liberal leadership anymore, that they're leading Canada in really unhappy and unproductive directions. So a lot of people were pressuring Mr. Singh, the leader of the NDP. He's the guy who's been making this deal with the Liberals to kind of support them and keep them in power. But Mr. Singh had some of his own agendas. He didn't have any money in the bank for his NDP to run an election, and a lot of his MPs were passionate about making sure they served enough years so that they'd collect a pension. So none of them were too interested in an election, and they just kept stalling and stalling. And then there were some other troubles in Parliament, and the other troubles went something like this. The Conservatives were saying, hey, there are documents that the Liberal cabinet should be producing for Parliament. It's an actual job of Parliament. Documents that talked about a slush fund in a green organization that the Liberal government set in motion, but had kind of turned corrupt. Well, in an act of contempt of Parliament, the Liberals wouldn't produce those documents. And so, in turn, then the Conservatives said, well, then we're not going to let any of the committees function. We're going to kind of stall things out. In a kind of way, Parliament was paralyzed. Nothing good was happening. Then, many of you will have heard that there was supposed to be a fall economic statement in the fall. Well, they waited until almost the end of fall. I mean, hey, it was December. And finally, Mr. Trudeau, on a weekend before there was going to be a fall economic update by the finance minister, Ms. Freeland, he zoomed in with her and he said, Christia, I'm going to replace you in 3 days' time, but go out there and announce with this fall economic statement that we're $62 billion in a deficit this year. We blew the bank wide open, and you get to announce that, and then about 24 hours later, I'm going to replace you. Well, she wasn't having any of it. Who the heck would? And so, the morning of that economic statement, she said, I resign. And she wrote a really scathing resignation letter. Good on her. Mr. Feminist Prime Minister can't just be using and abusing all these women in his cabinet for his own purposes. All right. So now, slowly but surely, all the Liberal MPs are saying, we don't have confidence in Mr. Trudeau. But in his usual style, he said, you know what? I'm just gonna avoid the press. I'm not gonna give any year-end interviews. I've got this ski holiday coming up. It's important to me. Okay. So he went and did all of that, and he spent 3 weeks thinking for something that could have taken him 3 hours to figure out. And he said, well, I guess this isn't gonna work. I'm gonna have to resign. But let's think, what would be the most self-serving and self-protective way I could do this? Well, I could announce that 3 months from now, I'll resign. And that'll give my party, which is kind of in tatters anyway, a chance to pick this leader. So that's kind of where we are. And so who's waiting in the wings for possibly winning an election if we get there, say, April? Well, it's the Conservative Party. And, you know, many of you will have heard that they're really good with the 3-word slogans. And, you know, they have all agreed to talk from the exact same songbook and say things like, axe the tax. Well, okay. I don't like taxes more than anybody else does. But there's always like public policy subtleties and nuance that we've got to remember and work through. And they're not really big on nuance. And, you know, most of the folks who are absolutely, in a very simple way, saying they're passionately for the Conservative Party, really, from what I've heard when I've done meetings out at community fairs or community coffees, like, we just got to get rid of Trudeau. We see how much of a problem he is. We've got to get rid of him. Well, he's going now. So now what's your passionate point of view for just having the Conservatives replace the whole thing? Well, I think that's an open question. But now, why do we have so much trouble today, January 7th, 2025? Because we've got an incoming president of the United States who's saying things at news conferences today like, I'm going to force the annexation of Canada by economic means. And that's a very close paraphrase of the quote he said today at the news conference. And that should embolden all of us to action. Except, what do we got right now? A prime minister who is basically totally checked out, has had no meaningful conversations with the cabinet about this, is not coordinating a nationwide response, and has managed to send 1 or 2 tweets today, but that's not a foreign policy. And so can this country really live through 90 more days of just caretaker kind of government? Don't know who's going to be in charge. Some of the cabinet ministers are going to be running for the federal Liberal Party leadership. And we'll have some opposition politicians snipe from the sidelines. But I haven't heard a ton of constructive things from them about exactly how we're going to defend our economic and border integrity from the United States. I haven't heard a single thing from a Conservative politician about the environment, about healthcare, about voting reform. If all you're leaning into your hope is, hey, well, the Conservatives will maybe win the next election, it'll probably be held in May, and then, you know, they'll help us kind of clean up the Liberal messes. Yeah, but what do you want the focus to be? Because I bet you they're going to be reasonable economic managers. But there are a lot of issues that bring passion to Canadians of all stripes, and I don't hear Conservatives talking about all those. So what do? Well, my solution is actually having a representative for a real representative democracy. And I'm offering myself as an independent. I want to make more of these long-form YouTube videos. I want to be able to do some explainers, and I'd love to hear back from you. Hit me up in the comments below or send me an email. connect@jimwiedrick.ca. Thanks.